At 2:46 a.m., my phone vibrated with a push alert from the Riverton Airport P3 garage. License plate recognition entry recorded against my monthly pass, even though my sedan sat under the maple outside our bungalow on Linden Street and my wife claimed a double shift on the ambulance. 20 seconds later, the same system pinged me for credit card authorization at the ticket kiosk. Chip present, the exact card I kept zipped inside a pouch in my nightstand. While I stared at the ceiling and tried to think of any innocent glitch that looked that precise, a rideshare receipt hit my email with a pickup at the airport garage exit and a drop-off at a low-rise complex called Harbor Lofts 3 miles from the river. We live in a 1940s two-bedroom with a steep roof and a crooked walkway, surrounded by neighbours who overwater azaleas and wave at the same rhythm they have used since the 1990s. Riverton is the kind of Oregon city that gets described as up and coming so often it stopped feeling like a compliment. Our street feeds into Piermont Avenue, which becomes the Silver Span Bridge over the Greywater, and on summer evenings the light slants through the trunks at Grand Lake Park in a way that makes even the loudest kids look holy. I manage an online shop that sells cabinet pulls and soft close hinges to small contractors and dyers. I started as a handyman and found out the thing that paid was stocking boxes and answering questions at midnight. My wife has been an EMT for 6 years, and her schedule could be used to justify anything because emergencies do not ask permission. We have a 5-year-old daughter who collects flat stones from the edge of the lake and lines them on the porch like trophies. The early years had a rhythm that made stress feel earned. I ran the e-commerce site during the day and cut plywood in the garage at night if local jobs needed it. She drove Unit 14 out of Station C, and on good days she came home smelling like coffee and clean uniform cotton, and on bad days she came home carrying the weight of something she couldn't put down. We balanced a pediatrician payment plan for our daughter's ear tubes, a short 0% promo we rolled onto a card for our roof, and a lingering student loan that sent monthly reminders like polite threats. There were nights I counted paper towels and dish soap and convinced myself bulk purchases kept us above water. Subtle red flags started small because they always do. She began wearing a body spray I'd never smelled in our house, something with smoky vanilla that hung in the car long after the windows were down. She left a second phone on the console sometimes, a cheap prepaid one with a cracked corner. She claimed it was for volunteer carrots that didn't belong on her personal line. Her favourite hoodie disappeared and reappeared with a grease streak I could not place. Her smartwatch started dying before noon, which made no sense if she charged overnight. We had petty cash vanish in tins and fives from the tray by the door. She kept a P.O. box at the UPS store on payment that she said was for the occasional return from an online purchase she didn't want sent to Station C, which I accepted until I found a certified letter slip with a signature that looked like a teenager had tried to copy my name. I told myself every marriage grows a few unexplained pockets. An EMT shift would make any person's brain miss file receipts. I reminded myself I have my own secrets, even if mine had the gentleness of hiding a few late invoices and a fear of calling clients who owed me. I ignored the way her car's mileage climbed on weeks her schedule claimed she mostly rode in a rig. I ignored a parking ticket from Harbor Lofts we could not anchor to any errand we had ever run on that side of town. I ignored a new visa I didn't apply for because I believed the bank pushed pre-approved nonsense so hard it felt like harassment. The night of the airport garage alert broke the dam of my denial because the system did not care about feelings, only plates and chips and timestamps. I pulled on jeans and padded to the driveway in socks like a teenager leaving a sleepover. The sedan stood back, frost on the roof plate exactly where it belonged. The rideshare email chirped again with a promotion for future rides if I rated Lyle 5 stars. I stood under the maple and watched my breath because sometimes the body needs time to accept that a data point is a story. By dawn, I had a list on a legal pad. I wrote the airport time, the rideshare time, the authorization amount, the address of Harbor Lofts. I scrolled through my email for a month and found 2 similar garage entries I had swiped away while making school lunches. I opened my bank app and saw a pattern I had missed: small purchases at a place called Foundry Cafe near Harbor Lofts, always with tips that looked like someone performing generosity for an audience. I dug through our home printer's box and found a suite of pages from a week earlier, a printer memory I didn't know existed, half printed like the tray had been bumped mid-job. One page was a Harbor Lofts guest policy, another was an invoice from Harbor Storage for a 5x5 unit, auto pay set to a card I did not recognize. I spent the morning toggling between panic and practicality. I called the bank and requested a freeze on the chip used at the garage kiosk because the app treated my card as if it had been physically inserted somewhere it hadn't. The rep attached an incident number, RD-297,114, and helped me order a new card overnight. She asked if I recognized 2 online purchases from an airline for flexible fare vouchers. I did not. She asked if I wanted to limit daily ATM withdrawals to 0. I did. Then I walked our daughter to kindergarten because you can do crisis and still be the adult who puts on gloves and holds a tiny hand across a big street. The first person I confronted was not her. It was the UPS store clerk on Piedmont where she rented box 62. I kept my voice calm because clerks don't owe anything to anyone. I told him my name and asked if he could tell me if registered mail under my name had landed there by mistake. He said the box was not in my name and that was the end of what he could say, but then he added, in the voice of a person who has seen enough to hear patterns, that he could tell me to look at the back of our lease because sometimes people use boxes as addresses when they want to live in one place and be seen in another. I checked our house lease line by line after I put the child's backpack on its hook and found nothing helpful except the landlord's insistence on no waterbeds, which made me laugh in a way that felt like sobbing. I checked her glove box while the oven reheated last night's pizza, and in a stack of old insurance cards I found a Harbor storage gate code on a yellow sticky note with a scribble underneath that looked like a 6-digit unit and a single initial M. The handwriting was too careful for a word note. It looked like the way you write when you imagine someone else might someday read it. That afternoon I drove to Harbor storage under a sky that couldn't decide between rain and glare. The units were lined like school lockers for adults who never learned to pack lightly. I didn't open a door. I didn't want my story to turn on breaking and entering. I took a photo of the monthly rate sheet that hung by the office and a photo of the gate keypad, not because I needed images, but because evidence calmed me. A woman wrangling a moving dolly asked if I wanted a card and then recognized me. Her kid is in my daughter's class, and we had stood next to each other at the PTA raffle. She mentioned, casually and without malice, that she had seen my wife there earlier in the week, and she thought it was nice that even first responders needed storage for laundry equipment because she had seen rolled textiles in my wife's arms. I thanked her and put those words in my pocket like a stone. I slept only once that week and nearly convinced myself I had invented a pattern. She got home from a shift and fell asleep in the recliner with her boots off, and I watched her chest go up and down and told myself no one who lies can sleep like that. The next morning I found a charge for a florist gold Moonlit Stem near Harbor Lofts and a second rideshare receipt that thanked me by the wrong first name, Mateer. The tech error felt like a god tapping my shoulder. The first reveal arrived on a Saturday in the form of a postcard from Greywater Imaging. It thanked my wife for her follow-up and reminded her to bring her new insurance card to the ultrasound appointment because the system had a habit of using old numbers. The context, and the little icon of a fetus at the bottom, made my eyes burn as if the page gave off heat. I read the appointment time twice and imagined what it meant. I had not been invited into any decision about more children. We had agreed to wait a year until the roof promo was paid and we could breathe. The card called our marriage a story told by 2 narrators who had stopped listening to each other. If I'm honest, I care less that she saw a doctor and more that she did it under an address at Harbor Lofts. The patient address field in the tiny print read Harbor Lofts Unit 204, which I only noticed because I handle shipping labels all day, and fonts are my only hobby. The card described the appointment as an exploration of a health issue, which could be anything from a fibroid to a benign cyst, and I told myself people book ultrasounds for more than babies. Then I found a patient portal email in our shared inbox that mentioned preconception counselling notes and saw my name omitted from the farther line with bureaucratic precision. I didn't storm into a clinic or an apartment building. Instead, I printed every email and cut out every timestamp and lined them on the kitchen table like a detective in a television show I would always mock. I highlighted car mileage entries I had recorded by habit when we got the oil changed, and I wrote in the dates I knew she had worked 24s and the dates the garage camera thought my plate had beeped. The data made shapes even if emotions tried to smear them. There is no way to rehearse the embarrassment of revealing a secret in a room full of people who think they know you. I found out because our daughter's school hosted an art night in the gym with little paper fish dangling from the ceiling like a cheap aquarium, and I had already promised paper plates and glitter. The principal offered a microphone I did not want because a power outage had knocked out one corner of the building and voices got swallowed. I did not bolt. I pulled my manila envelope from under the snack table and asked my wife to look at the papers in the hallway because I couldn't carry them alone a minute longer. She waved me off with a smile that could charm a stadium. I did not accuse in front of children. I stood near the trophy case with 2 other parents close enough to count as witnesses even if they hated being placed in that role. One teaches 7th grade science and said she has seen everything by now. The other is a firefighter who worked mutual aid with Station C during the summer wildfires. I showed them the garage alerts and the rideshare receipts and the forest charge and the P.O. box signature. I kept my voice level because yelling is just a way to lose leverage. The firefighter asked when Harbor Lofts got a florist. I hadn't realised the city moved Moonlit Stem into the lobby last month. The 7th grade teacher asked me if I had seen the storage unit logs and told me she had gotten a call once about a storage unit draining her bank because an ex had set up auto-pay with her card. She handed me the number for the regional manager. She had no reason to help. She did anyway. My wife joined after her craft station clean-up, saw the envelope, and told me with a practiced weariness that emergency departments change plans mid-shift and rideshares get expensive, and some people use separate garages to hire shift nap from supervisors who hate seeing personal cars during duty hours, and none of this meant anything but exhaustion. She said the ultrasound was for health scare and the address was an error at the clinic because medical records always carry the wrong address for months. She said I could call her supervisor and ask if she had worked. I did call later. He told me she had swapped more shifts this month than in any previous period, but couldn't break privacy laws to tell me whether she had completed them. I would like to pretend I was a better husband than a logbook, but paperwork respected me more than feelings did. The storage unit regional manager called me because the 7th grade teacher's contact worked. He said he couldn't give me the unit contents but could confirm the payment card and the gate entries. He read a sequence of numbers I recognized as the last four on the visa that I had never ordered and a pattern of entries that matched the rideshare pickups. He said each time the gate opened, the system snapped the still of the driver's face. He went quiet after that because he had said more than policy aloud. The silence felt like someone closing a book gently on a shaking hand. I set boundaries with the only tools a person like me has. I opened a separate account at Revert and Credit and routed my paychecks there. I froze the joint cards and set a fraud alert at all three bureaus. I filed an incident report in person at the non-emergency desk on Riverbend Boulevard and walked out with a paper case number, RV-556,213. Not because I intended to press charges, but because I needed a record. I wrote a letter to my wife, signed with a pen that had ink heavy enough to push through the paper, explaining that I would not be joined paying for any unit at Harbor Storage or any mailbox at UPS or any forest anywhere in the city. I said I would continue to pay for our daughter's school, for food, and for rent until further notice because I would not let a battle swallow a child's life. I told her any further financial decisions had to be in writing. The second reveal landed with the weight of legal paper. A notary envelope appeared in the UPS box message portal. She had once let me set notifications on my number because the app annoyed her, and the subject line included the words "Quitclaim on Linden Street," as if a robot had decided chaos could be tidy. I opened the link before she could delete the message. The document was a draft transferring my half of our house to a trust I had never heard of, with my signature pasted in a way only a stranger would think looked normal. The date was last Tuesday at 9:08 p.m., a time I had been reading to our daughter about a bear trying on hats. I took the draft to a lawyer on Canopy Row who wears scuffed boots and doesn't pretend law is romance. She told me to file a letter with the county recorder immediately and notice of suspected forgery, case appended to my police report. She handed me a stamped copy with a number that looked like a coordinate, RC-34,801. The third reveal came from biology. Our primary care office called to confirm my wife's medication refill and asked me to remind her that the prenatal vitamins had changed brand and the generic from Granite Lab sometimes upset stomachs. The nurse said the clinic had been instructed to send messages to both numbers on file because the patient had missed lab appointments. I did not ask whether the vitamins meant what vitamins usually mean. I wrote the information on a sticky and put the sticky in a drawer. Then I called 2 testing labs certified for chain of custody DNA because it felt cruel to let questions sit in my stomach until they burned whole. I scheduled a legal paternity test not because I wanted a fight, but because I refused to let a fear become a fog. I sent my wife a com email with a confirmation number from Cascade Diagnostics, CD-90817, proposing a date 2 weeks out, and I saved the message as a PDF so a judge someday would know I tried to speak kindly. If you were me, would you walk into that clinic tomorrow and demand blood drawn at once and burn whatever trust remains? Or would you wait for her to decide whether to show up and risk being told you wasted your chance to be certain while life moved forward without you? The fourth reveal was not about another man, it was about employment. A friend at Station C who works on the billing side asked me in the soda aisle at Safeway whether my wife was taking leave because the payroll system had flagged weeks with clock-ins that did not match routed calls. He said the audit was normal. He also said he didn't want to be in the middle. He counted as an independent witness by accident. He had no reason to help. He had every reason not to. He said auditors use a program called TimeWave that aligns GPS pings from call logs with payroll punches, and the pings told the story, the timesheets did not. I organised the publicity insane enough to look theatrical, and I did it on purpose because secrets prefer living rooms. Our church hosted a rummage sale in the basement to raise funds for the youth service trip, and we were already assigned to tables, me to hardware and gadgets, her to linens. I carried my envelope because Curtis has a smell, and I was already stuck with it. In a corner near the coffee urn, between a bin of phone chargers and an old bread maker, I showed our pastor, 2 committee members, and my wife the garage photos, the storage unit authorization, the forgery notice, the audit rumour, the prenatal call notes. I placed the documents side by side like I was building something stable. The pastor didn't look shocked because he had held too many hands in worse rooms. He asked if we had a plan that avoided screaming. The committee women studied the paper like they were choosing wallpaper and then put a hand on my arm because sometimes that's all anyone can offer. My wife said my need to turn a life into files proved how little she could count on me to hold complicated things like fear and behaviour in the same hand. She said my paperwork fetish made me blind to her actual self. I almost laughed because I wanted to ask her which self she meant. The 5th reveal arrived that night from a Ring camera I had forgotten we owned because we never set up the chime. The app had updated itself months ago and apparently decided I deserved to see what the porch saw. I scrolled through motion clips and found nothing but delivery drivers and neighbour cats until a 5-minute chunk on the previous Wednesday when a tall man with a Harbor Lofts hoodie stood on our step with flowers from Moonlit Stem and a small envelope. He knocked. He waited. He looked at his phone. He read the name on the mailbox and left without slipping anything inside. In the reflective glass I could see a blur that might have been my wife's outline hovering in the hallway until he gave up. The camera didn't hear words. It didn't need to. The clip felt like watching a choice. After that I took a day off work and wrote a budget as if a judge sat behind my couch. I set up a new savings with a nickname that made me feel like an adult, not a man scrabbling out receipts. I listed our daughter's expenses, with aftercare circled 3 times. I added the startup costs of a solo apartment if we split, deposits, utility activation fees. I called my mother and told her I might need help picking up my girl if a meeting ran long. My mother doesn't ask questions unless Sansa's help, and she reminded me to make copy after copy because paper disappears when people panic. I thanked her because decency has an echo I did not want to lose. I asked my wife to meet at a neutral place to discuss logistics because screaming confuses children's ears even in the next room. We chose a picnic table at Grant Lake Park because fathers throw baseballs nearby, which keeps conversations under control. She wore her uniform hoodie, and I looked like a person whose timeline had outrun her story. She said she had a health diagnosis she wasn't ready to share because I would make it about betrayal. She said she had thought about moving to Harbor Lofts to give us space while she figured out whether she was ill or just scared. She named the man only by job, an ultrasound tech, and insisted it had not been an affair but an unfortunate human tangle she intended to cut. She said she would not take a DNA test under any circumstance because the implication poisoned her. She said our daughter was fine and always would be because we were both good. I told her I was willing to believe any scenario that came with records and clarity. I told her I would not be the man who punches holes in his own walls and calls the solution. I told her I would only communicate by email and text until I could be sure my words would not be edited in memory. The 6th reveal came from an unexpected angle. Our babysitter, a college sophomore who adores our daughter and wears denim overalls like armor, texted me a photo of a card she found wedged under the seat in my wife's car. There was a clinic feedback card with the text name printed at the bottom and a QR code to rate service. On the back someone had scribbled an appointment time and a smiley face. The sitter asked if she should ignore it. I told her she should, and then I made myself put the phone down for an hour because obsession rearranges the brain. Later I scanned the code with a different device and found the clinic's staff page. The tech looked like a man whose parents had expected him to be gentle with pets. I closed the page and reminded myself that stories need villains less than they need truth. By the time the legal paternity test date approached, my wife had moved to the couch of a co-worker for a week, then to a sublet at Harbor Lofts. She insisted on keeping our daughter's routine undisturbed, So we traded mornings without speaking and wrote pick-up plans in a shared calendar like professionals. The night before the test, a storm rolled through with heavy wind and trees throwing themselves around on purpose. At 3:04 a.m., the Ring app sent a motion alert, and to rain blur the camera caught a shape on our porch in the quick flash of Moonlit Stem's paper. I did not open the door. The motion clip ended with a dark smooth sliding down the glass as if flowers had sighed and given up. My wife did not appear at the lab. I arrived with my ID and the calm of a person who has been told to wait in rooms for months. A nurse took my swabs, bagged them, and attached a form with my case number, CD-90817, in a font that trusted itself. She told me the other party could come at any time within 2 weeks, and the chain would hold. I signed. I walked out with a copy of my signature and a plastic pen I threw away because the ink smelled like an airport. This is the part of the story where any friend would tell me to hire the best lawyer in town and file at once. And that is exactly what I did, because even people like me can be decisive when a horizon is obvious. The lawyer on Canopy Row added a custody petition and a financial restraining order to the forgery note already on file. He included an exhibit list that looked absurdly long for life only 5 years old on paper: garage alerts, storage payments, florist receipts, the Ring clip, the UPS box contract, the EMS audit rumour in an email, the quick-lim draft with my cut and paste signature, the clinic postcard, the prenatal note, a photo of our daughter eating cereal because a judge needs to see who this fight is theoretically for. He filed and then sat with me while I breathed like a person who just ran without training. If you stand back far enough, the plot looks simple. Woman lives 2 lives until the ballast shifts. Man finds paperwork and chooses the kind of decency that feels like erasure. Child navigates houses because the law likes calendars more than lullabies. Up close it feels less tidy. Up close the story includes the smell of smoky vanilla in an old Honda and the click of a storage unit gate at 8:12 p.m. and the neighbour waving from her porch while pretending she doesn't see your eyes. Up close it includes me standing in the laundry room at midnight, folding tiny shirts with more precision than any human needs because precision is the only thing I can control. The aftermath has not turned into a clean moral. My wife's health issue produced a test result that wasn't catastrophic but sobered everyone. She confided it to the pastor and then to me in a brief email, which made me ache because emails about bodies should not exist. She didn't deny intimacy with the tech. She didn't declare it either. She asked for compassion. I gave the practical kind instead, a list of dates I could take our daughter overnight so appointments could happen without a 5-year-old asking if the room smelled like lemons on purpose. I told her I had arranged a counsellor through my union's EAP because narrative clarity requires more than Google. I installed a new deadbolt not because she posed danger, but because boundaries need a handle. I moved the printer to the closet and changed every password to something I could remember without writing down. I told our daughter the house had grown too big so that everyone could rest better, and she asked whether the porch flowers were mine. I said they had been borrowed and returned. On Sunday mornings we still go to the rummage sale church because faith communities are good at pretending nothing happened, and the quiet helps. The committee ladies watch me like they want to deliver casseroles without implying pity. The pastor shakes my hand and holds it a beat too long. The firefighter from the school art night nods from a back pew and avoids the coffee table because conversations are landmines. The 7th grade science teacher sends me spreadsheet templates for custody calendars like that's a normal thing to trade with another parent. I remain grateful for all of them because independence feels brave until Friday at 6 p.m. when the house is silent and countertops reflect your face like a mirror you didn't order. The haunting image that started this story still repeats in my mind with the mechanical certainty of a parking barrier arm. In that first alert at 2:46 a.m., I imagine a red LED scanning a plate number in the rain, a beep, a bar rising like permission. In the second, I see a ticket kiosk swallowing a card and pretending it is mine. Sometimes I hear the faint wheels of a suitcase that never existed and the look of a rideshare idling. I stand at my own front door now at night and look at the ring lines and see myself looking back, ghosted by porch light and reflected as alias. My fingers hover over the lock the way a foot hovers over a step you add in darkness because your body insists an extra stair exists. On calm days, I drive the long way to the shop to cross the silver span bridge and spy the river moving under me like nothing in the world cares about human paperwork. I drop my daughter at school and watch her run to the line where tiny backpacks line up like carrots in a garden. I answer customers who ask whether oil rub bronze pairs with white shaker cabinets, and I tell them yes because sometimes the world offers easy answers. I make dinner for 1.5, and if she's with me, we eat together and colour the fish on her homework and pretend they know which direction water goes. After she sleeps, I open my laptop and update my budget because numbers feel obedient even when the rest of life refuses to sit. On worse nights I wake at 2:46 a.m. exactly, as if my walls keep time, and I walk to the window facing the street. The maple rakes the glass with shadows. Somewhere across town a gate winds as it opens for someone who still believes they are invisible. I rest my forehead on the pane until the cold convinces me it is real. Phone doesn't buzz now because I shut off every notification I could find, but I still hear the phantom ping in the hollow space where trust used to be. I picture a parking barrier rising to no one, an empty rideshare app waiting for a finger, and a bouquet going soft on a porch in the rain.